So in today's video, I'm going to be discussing the greatest trades, acquisitions, and signings in Kansas City Chiefs history. Now, before we get into the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and let's jump right into the video. So with the NFL draft just a few days away, I thought it would be fun to take a look at some of the additions in Kansas City Chiefs history and see how much they impacted the team and what they did for the Kansas City Chiefs, because I think the Chiefs have made some very significant roster moves in the past, and I just wanted to take a look back and give some love to those guys that have made a difference for the Kansas City Chiefs. So the first player that I have is Alex Smith. I think he's the most important trade that the Kansas City Chiefs have made in the 2010s. Now, obviously, the Chiefs made a very significant trade in the NFL draft a few years ago, but we'll get to that one in a second. But I think personally, Alex Smith completely changed the way that people look at the Kansas City Chiefs. I think what Alex Smith did for the Kansas City Chiefs franchise is still being felt today, because when Kansas City traded for him from the 49ers, he made an impact on this team. In his 5 years as a starting quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs, he only missed the playoffs once, won the division twice, and the Chiefs became a legitimate threat week in and week out. A team that people were not looking over anymore, because you had those really bad times from 2007 to 2012. The Chiefs only making the playoffs one time during that time span, and they lost that playoff game. We had to endure the Matt Castle era. The team was really bad. When Alex Smith came in, this team was coming off a 2-14 record, and I think Alex Smith did a tremendous job in his first year and his tenure as a Kansas City Chiefs, flipping the franchise. And I think what the Chiefs did by acquiring Alex Smith is, like I said, is still being felt today. Without Alex Smith, I don't think they're at where they're at right now, a team that is vying for a Super Bowl every single year. And in his 5 years, Alex Smith may have only won one playoff game, but I think his impact is much more felt, and I think his impact is much more important than just the one playoff win. He had an amazing year in 2017. He helped develop Patrick Mahomes, leading Patrick Mahomes into his fantastic career. But I just think what Alex Smith did to the Kansas City Chiefs, what he's done for the Chiefs, what he's done for that franchise will never go unnoticed. And without Alex Smith, I don't know what the Kansas City Chiefs are at where they're at today. Which leads me to the next guy, which I'm kind of cheating a little bit because I'm going to be discussing a guy who the Chiefs traded up for to get in the draft, but I think it's well warranted, and I think it's very important. And I think the next and most important move that the Chiefs have ever made in the NFL draft is trading up for Patrick Mahomes. They traded away their 2017 number 27 overall pick, their third round pick, and their 2018 first round pick to the Buffalo Bills to move up to number 10 and take Patrick Mahomes. Now, I could say that the rest is history, but I'll go a little bit more into that. We had Alex Smith for 5 years before Patrick Mahomes came in and became the quarterback that we all know and love. We'll never take for granted what Alex Smith did for the franchise and what he did for Kansas City, but I think Patrick Mahomes was able to take them over the hump to the level that the Kansas City Chiefs knew where they could be. With Alex Smith, that Alex Smith started that ride, and I think Patrick Mahomes in a way kind of finished that ride. And Patrick Mahomes' 4 years as starting in the NFL, keep in mind he sat out his first year. Patrick Mahomes has never missed the AFC Championship game. He's been to back-to-back Super Bowls. He's won Super Bowl MVP. He's won league MVP. He had a 5,000-yard, 50-touchdown season his first year starting. He has a 50-14 record as a starter. I know that QB wins aren't necessarily a stat, but you look at the team record with Patrick Mahomes as a starter. He's won the division every single year that he's been a starting quarterback. And what Alex Smith did for the Kansas City Chiefs was very important, but I think what the Chiefs did trading up in the 2017 draft to take Patrick Mahomes is quite possibly might go down as the greatest trade in draft history, because what Patrick Mahomes is for the Kansas City Chiefs in the short time that he's been the quarterback is nothing short of remarkable. He makes plays that absolutely nobody else in the NFL can make, and by far I think it's a short time span. It's only 5 years ago since it happened, but I think what the Chiefs did by trading up for Patrick Mahomes in the 2017 draft might be the most important and the greatest move the Chiefs have ever made in the history of the franchise. Which then leads me to another quarterback. Now, this one is kind of old, so bear with me, but the most important acquisition when the Chiefs organization first started might have been Len Dawson. Lynn Dawson, he was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then he was traded to the Browns, and then he was released by the Browns after only 21 pass attempts in the NFL in his career, and then he signed with the Chiefs, and then, as you can say, the rest again is history. He signed with the Chiefs in 1962 when they were still the Dallas Texans, led them to the AFL Championship in 1962 in his first year starting, led the Chiefs to Super Bowl I, led the Chiefs to their very first Super Bowl victory in the history of the franchise. He's the Chiefs' all all-time leading passer. Now that's going to get passed by Patrick Mahomes one of these days. That's very clear. But I just think what Len Dawson did for the Kansas City Chiefs, Dallas Texans, whenever he first took over the team, and then when they moved to Kansas City, he kind of put the Kansas City Chiefs on the map. They were in 2 of the first 4 Super Bowls. He made a dramatic impact for the organization, and I just think that Len Dawson, in the history of the Kansas City Chiefs, you can't talk about the Chiefs without talking about what he's done in his time in Kansas City. He has a 93, 56, and 8 career record, and was very vital for the early success of the Kansas City Chiefs. Which then leads me to another offensive guy, and that is Priest Holmes. Now, Priest Holmes is an amazing story. He was signed by the Baltimore Ravens as an undrafted free agent in 1997. He won the Super Bowl with them in 2001, but in his career, he had just over 2,000 career rushing yards in 4 years. But in 2001, he signed with the Kansas City Chiefs in free agency, and in his very first year as a Kansas City Chief, he led the NFL in rushing. He went from just over 2,000 career rushing yards to leading the league in 1 year. So you can say that he was very important to the Kansas City Chiefs offense, but in a way, the Chiefs were able to unlock the talent of Priest Holmes. He is by far one of the best free agent signings in Kansas City Chiefs history. In a 3-year span, he had 56 rushing touchdowns. He led the NFL in rushing touchdowns in 2002 and in 2003. He was a bright spot on a Kansas City Chiefs team that was pretty bad, in those early 2000 years. They made the playoffs a couple times, but they weren't really particularly a great team. He was a 3-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro, 2002 Offensive Player of the Year, and I think what he did with the Kansas City Chiefs, he was a very great player. He did amazing things with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's in the Chiefs Hall of Fame, well deserved, and I just think he is a very important piece to the Kansas City Chiefs and the story of their franchise. Which then leads me to the very first defensive player on this list, and the only defensive player on this list, and that's Tyrann Mathieu. He is the greatest defensive free agent signing probably in Chiefs history. What he did for that Kansas City Chiefs defense, you can never chalk down what Tyrann Mathieu did to simply just numbers. Tyrann Mathieu is very important to what the Kansas City Chiefs were able to do and able to achieve on that football field. In Tyrann Mathieu's very first season as a Kansas City Chief, they went to the Super Bowl and they won it. So that just shows right there the value that Tyrann Mathieu brought to the Kansas City Chiefs team. He changed the culture of that defense because the defense was a mess the year before he came in. And it took a while in that 2019 year for the Kansas City Chiefs defense to get rolling. It wasn't particularly good to start the season, and then as the late in that season, that Chiefs defense was not something you wanted to play at all. They were the best defense in football down the stretch of that season. He's by far, in my opinion, the best safety in the NFL. His skills are really hard to replicate. Just the way he plays the safety position is unmatched. I don't know if there's ever going to be a guy that has the instinct of a Tyrann Mathieu ever again. And just the way he made guys better on the defensive side of the football. Like, you look at Juan Thornhill, he struggled so badly without Tyrann Mathieu on the field. But anytime that Tyrann Mathieu's on the football field, it just felt like every single guy around Tyrann Mathieu was just better. So I don't think you can just chalk what Tyrann Mathieu did for the Kansas City Chiefs down to just numbers. The value that he brought to the Kansas City Chiefs is irreplaceable. Which brings me to the last guy, and a guy that is also not ever going to be replaced, and that's Andy Reid. The Philadelphia Eagles gifted the Kansas City Chiefs a gem by releasing him. In 2013, Andy Reid came into an organization that just came off a 2-14 record, and at that same time, he brought Alex Smith came into the organization, and those two together just changed the way that people view the Kansas City Chiefs. As a player-wise, I think Alex Smith is the most important player that the Chiefs have ever added to their franchise. When it comes to a coach and just a single person, you could argue that Andy Reid is the most important person that the Kansas City Chiefs have ever brought into the franchise. Since Andy Reid has got there, the Chiefs have only missed the playoffs once. The Chiefs, again, they've been to back-to-back Super Bowls, won a Super Bowl. They've won the AFC West 6 times in a row. And then he brings in Mahomes, and with Mahomes, they've done amazing things. They've never missed the AFC Championship game with those two as QB and coach, helping the Chiefs win their very first Super Bowl in 50 years, getting his first career Super Bowl victory. That one thing that was lingering over Andy Reid for his entire career, finally getting his first career Super Bowl victory. What Andy Reid has done for this Kansas City Chiefs team, turning them into a pretty much a joke of a franchise, into a team that is a favorite week in and week out, a favorite to win the Super Bowl every single year that Andy Reid is the head coach. And when you know you have Andy Reid as the head coach, you almost feel like you never have to worry. Obviously, he makes questionable decisions, but at the same time, what Andy Reid has done for the Kansas City Chiefs, what he's done for this franchise, what he's done to that city, bringing them their first Super Bowl in 50 years. I think Andy Reid might go down as the greatest head coach in Kansas City Chiefs history. But those are the guys that I think had the most impact. Those are the guys who I think are the biggest acquisitions, trades, and signings in Kansas City Chiefs history. Give me your thoughts down below. Who do you think is the greatest addition in Kansas City Chiefs history? And I'll see you in the next one.